Now, Dan, aside from what we've just seen, what direction is this industry going in today?
Well, Six Sigma has been traditionally applied, as Stephen said, in manufacturing. It came out of GE, Motorola, Honeywell. And we saw there that it sort of moved over into a heavier industry, transportation, but the trend is to apply this to all business functions. Six Sigma is great for solving complex problems in complex industries, which most industries are becoming today. Steve, where do you see Six Sigma and lean techniques going in services industries like healthcare, finance, insurance?
Well, that is a great question, and that's really the next direction of Six Sigma, I think. There's been a lot of literature out now combining Lean and Six Sigma methodologies in order to make a company more successful. And they really are very integrated. If you look at Six Sigma, its whole goal is to reduce variability. Variability in the product or services, variability in the process. And if you look at Lean, its whole goal really is to reduce variability in product or information flow. Well, obviously in the transactional businesses, the services industry, it's a lot of information flow that's got to be leaned out, if you will. And it's very complex, so you need the right Six Sigma tools in the right place. So my anticipation is over the next 5 years, you're going to see some huge benefits to the services industry in getting better at doing what they already do. The healthcare industry is one in particular where most everybody's got a lot of great war stories about the bad processes in healthcare, and yet those are ripe for a Lean and Six Sigma approach and should have a great benefit on not only the hospital's bottom line, but humanity in general.
Well, you're right about the services industry. Some research we've done, we're working with Bank of America at Gartner, and we found that they're projecting savings in 2002 of $1 billion.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Now, Steve, give our viewers a picture of some of the problems you solved for your customers by using this methodology.
Well, the wonderful thing about Six Sigma is that it solves not only the complex problems, but also the simple problems. Some people have to have an MBA to understand some of the advanced tools, and some people can be a line operator right out on the line. So we've gone from from one extent to where there's a huge chemical factory that was designed to build 2 products and they weren't hitting their numbers, to where in a year they turned it around, and that project brought 5 cents per share at the end of the year. And the team was led by a 23-year-old chemical engineer out of Louisiana State University, so it's quite an opportunity. Then we have other projects where an administrative assistant optimized travel money and saved the company $500,000 a year on a 2-week Greenbelt training course.
Steve, Six Sigma has its roots in mathematics. Could you sort of give us a little bit of explanation of the basics of Six Sigma?
Well, Six Sigma is first oriented toward measuring the capability of the process. And at Motorola, the metric defects per unit built was really the metric. And so you start with that, and how good are you doing, how many defects are you making, and you start tracking that. And then depending upon the problem, the more complexity, generally the more sophisticated the tools become. So in chemical processes, for example, the highest level sophisticated statistical tools must be brought to bear just because of the complexity. However, in transactional processes like optimizing your human resource recruiting process, some very simple and many times non-statistical tools are the most effective. And so I think the key is to have the tool set, but use the right tool at the right time to solve the problem in the simplest way.
Now, Steve, how do and how can companies sustain the results from process improvement work over the long term?
Well, the simplest word, I think, to success in Six Sigma, Al, is accountability. That the leadership forces the organization to be accountable for results. And so every year in the annual operating plan, Six Sigma goals are stated, and the people are expected to get there. And also integrating the financial people heavily into the program help ensure that the numbers are real. And so at the end of the day, a company's CEO should be able to say, because of Six Sigma, I was able to get this much earnings per share from the program.
In this climate, that's an increasingly important subject.
Yes, I think most people are real interested in that.
Steve, there's been a lot of hype around Six Sigma. I mean, it has impressive results, $1 billion at GE, $1 billion at Bank of America and other places. But because of this hype, there's probably a lot of misconceptions out there. What do you think is the biggest misconception around Six Sigma today?
I think the biggest misconception now is that Six Sigma is primarily a cost reduction or productivity tool, when in reality Six Sigma is really aimed at growth. Now, a friend of mine who's now the CEO of W.R. Gray said being a CEO is very easy. It's just growth and productivity. And when companies like GE report these billions of dollars savings, they're talking about cost reduction, but in some cases they're also talking about revenue generation. So using Six Sigma across the company and using the vast array of tools appropriately, it helps a company understand the customer's requirements, what they really want before the customer even understands it, and gets that product or service to them very quickly. And people sort of miss that when they get into Six Sigma. They really think it's cost reduction, and Al, as you know, cost reduction only gets you so far in this day and age. It's really all about growth.
Right. Now, tell our viewers what the deployment of Six Sigma means typically to a company today.
The deployment of Six Sigma is a scary thing to a lot of companies, and some of the companies we've worked with are very tentative about it because what it represents is a major culture shift. A culture shift away from having your big problem solved by the hero, by maybe 10% or less of your population, to having a bunch of problems solved by maybe 50 or 60% of your population. And the leadership it takes to get to that point is a huge requirement. There's a lot of work in the first 2 years over and above what these senior leaders generally do, and that gets a little scary in this day and age because people have a lot to do sometimes just to keep the company afloat.
Steve, we've thrown around the big numbers from the big companies, but let's get more to the average enterprise. Can you give us some examples of some successful clients other than the Fortune 10 type companies, and why were they successful with their projects?
Well, Six Sigma works in just about any size of company. Essentially, if you have a business process, a set of business processes, and if you have some customers, you're probably in line for Six Sigma. Personally, I enjoy working with the smaller companies more because a few well-trained people can literally turn the company around forever. And we do work with small companies via public offerings and things like that. So we've had results from small companies where they're black belts and green belts, in industry terms for a level of competency in Six Sigma, have averaged maybe anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 a project. And in a small company, say a revenue of $10 million a year, that's a lot of money to be made. The big companies do very well also. They generally, if the front end work, the Six Sigma is right, and they pick the right projects, can average $500,000 to $1 million a project. We just saw CSX, and CSX is averaging about $1 million per black belt project. Really amazing.
So what's the key to their success, though?
The key to the success, again, is the senior leadership setting clear expectations and being truly committed to tracking the program and the results. I recently visited one of our clients who they were reviewing their black belt projects. Person to person, all the senior leadership were there listening to every black belt project and commenting on it. And the subtle implication was you really didn't need to come to that presentation unless you were making a lot of money out of the project. So clear leadership commitment to spending the time with the black belts and green belts, looking at the projects and making sure they're getting the support to be successful is really what it's all about.
Now, tell our viewers what a company new to your methods, what challenges do they normally confront?
Well, I think the biggest stumbling block in most companies is project selection. As if you look at Six Sigma very simply, it's getting the right projects, putting the right people on the projects, giving them the right tools, and you get the right results. So it's the right projects, right people, right tools, right results. The projects is the input, and like anything else, garbage in, garbage out. If you have bad projects, poorly defined projects, you won't get very good results. So we work very extensively with the leadership up front to understand their strategy and where they're bleeding right now so that they can pick the right projects. It almost guarantees that the black belt will be successful.
Yeah.